Alright everybody, this is my video on Void Staff, Cryptbloom, Lord Dominic's Regards, and Mortal Reminder. And we're going to talk about the differences between the two and why I think that Cryptbloom is always better than Void Staff, and why Mortal Reminder and Lord Dominic's Regards is more of a choice than people are giving credit for. So, let's talk about Void Staff and Cryptbloom first, because I have that up. Here I have some notes on the side. Let's go over the build path and cost of Void Staff really quickly. So Void Staff is a 3,000 gold item, 95 AP, 40% magic penetration, builds out of a Blighting Jewel and a Blasting Wand. Cryptbloom is 2850 AP, builds out of a Blighting Jewel and a Fiendish Codex, has 70 AP, 15 CDR, and 30% Magic Pen. So let's talk about the intended purpose of Void Staff and Cryptbloom. So Void Staff is really intended for burst mages, and it's also intended for into teams that are stacking a lot of MR. Cryptbloom is a bit cheaper. It's designed more for sustained DPS and utility mages, trading off a little bit of magic penetration percentage for CDR, a cheaper cost, and its unique passive Life from Death, which we'll get to in a bit. So that's the intended purpose of Void Staff and Cryptbloom. And now let's talk about why Void Staff is bad. So the first things first is the build path is pretty bad. More specifically, Blighting Jewel is a really bad item. So Blighting Jewel is an 1100 gold item. It has 25 AP and 13% Magic Pen. And so at this cost, let's equate this to about a Dirk, right? And a serrated Dirk gives you AD and lethality, of course, right? At roughly the same. The difference between a serrated Dirk and a Blighting Jewel is that lethality and percent pen are not equivalent. Lethality is good in the early game, so you can rush this. You can rush a serrated Dirk. Percent pen is not good until the later stages of the game. And so if we look at this, we have 13% Magic Pen and 25 AP. 13% Magic Pen bought in the early game is not a good stat because most teams, enemy teams, do not have enough MR to make 13% Magic Pen better than, let's say, the 15 flat Magic Penetration of Sork Shoes. At the same time, 25 AP is not a lot. It's not enough to compensate for the 13% Magic Penetration percentage. So overall, Blighting Jewel is not a good item. On the other hand, Void Staff also builds out of a Blasting Wand, which is 850 gold. Now, Blasting Wand is a decently good item, but it is a singular component. You have to put in 850 gold up front immediately, and that's on the cheaper end, but it's not the cheapest item. It's still 850 gold. So you always want to be going Blasting Wand into Blighting Jewel first. The other problem with Void Staff is that it is too expensive. It is 3,000 gold. And so the problem with mage items, well, not necessarily a problem, but an interesting thing about mage items is your first and third item are generally locked in. Your first item is going to be a mana item of some sort, be it Malignants, Seraphs, Ludens, what have you. And your third item is going to be Rabadon's Death Cap, no matter what. Your second item can be Shadow Flame, Lichbane, Cosmic Drive, whatever you need, but your first and third item are basically locked in. What that means is that you are going to have to pay a premium price for your mana item. Mana items are not cheap, they're on the more expensive side. And then you are going to have to get Rabadon's Death Cap, which is the most expensive item in the game. Has a terrible build path, but it is core, beyond core even, for mage items. And this is really a problem because it means that you're essentially having to climb over the mountain that is Rabadon's Death Cap. It's an expensive item. It's your third core item, and in this day and age, as games are getting faster and faster, it's becoming harder and harder to finish your Death Cap in a timely manner. Most games are done or in the end stages once you are halfway through Death Cap or once you have gotten Death Cap, which is why you see some mages going Death Cap second. That's more for team comp, but sometimes you will see Death Cap second on mages, just because they need that instant injection of AP now rather than on your third item. So once you cross the mountain that is Rabadon's Death Cap, you then have to deal with a 3,000 gold item, which first you need to invest 850 gold into a blasting wand. That's not bad. Then you need to invest 1,100 gold into a very bad item, and then you need to invest 1,050 more gold, and then you get a void staff. The cost is just too high at this point. And then this is alluding back to what I was saying, and the reason why void staff has to be built fourth item is because of basically the same reason why Blighting Jewel is a bad item. If you build it second, then there is not enough MR on any enemy teams to make it worth it, and flat penetration, like on Shadow Flame or Cirque Shoes, will be better. Or, if you buy it fourth item, then it's too expensive. So Void Staff is stuck in the spot of having really good stats, but it has a terrible build path and is too expensive for most mages to realistically be able to afford compared to Cryptbloom. And so now let's talk about why Cryptbloom is so good. So Cryptbloom is obviously cheaper. It's 28.50 gold, so we're already alleviating that problem of the cost, right? And then now it has a better build path. So obviously it has a Blighting Jewel still. You want to get this last. But it has a Fiendish Codex now. And Fiendish Codex is 900 gold, which is 50 gold more expensive than a Blasting Wand. However, Fiendish Codex builds out of Amplifying Tomes and Glowing Motes. Now, Glowing Mote is also a terrible item. It is very bad. Riot have made it very bad. But the mere fact that you can build from an Amplifying Tome to a Fiendish Codex into the rest of your components means it is much easier and much smoother to build into Cryptbloom. Now you're not going to be sitting on 600 gold waiting for your Blasting Wand. Now you'll be able to afford an Amplifying Tome and maybe a Glowing Mote while you wait for your Fiendish Codex. Once you have your Fiendish Codex, then you can start building towards your Cryptbloom. Cryptbloom is also just really good from behind because of the fact that it has a smoother build path and it's cheaper. You're not paying, let's say, a premium cost. You're paying a little bit less, which makes things easier if you are from behind. And the main thing that makes Cryptbloom so much better is that it has CDR on it, and it has a unique Life from Death path. So, specifically in Season 14, when Riot changed mage items, they decreased or removed the CDR on a lot of items. Pretty much the only way you're going to get CDR is from your mana item. All the mana items have CDR on them. Depending on what your second item is, you may have CDR, but even if it does have CDR, it will be less than last season and previous seasons. Your third item, Rabadon's Death Cap, does not have anything except AP on it. And so, Cryptbloom having CDR on it means that it is much more valuable, especially for the mages that want to build it. Specifically, the Life from Death passive and the CDR caters this really good and really well towards burn mages, damage over time mages, or sustained DPS mages. So let's get to why the CDR and heal is good. We've already talked about the limited CDR in the mage item system. We've talked about the dual capstone system in mages, where you need a mana item, you need your death cap. Let's talk about why heal is really good. So, sustained DPS mages are going to be better than burst mages into teams that have stacking MR. This is just the reality of the situation. because burst mages are also gated by super long cooldowns. So what that means is, even if you buy a Void Staff, once you blow your full combo, you may put a dent into that bruiser that's running at you, but it's just going to tank right through it, and it's going to jump on you, and you're going to have all your CDs down. Sustained DPS mages build CDR, they build some AP, but CDR is the focus because they want to be building those burn effects like Blackfire Torch, early injuries, and they want to be having that CDR so they can constantly be spamming abilities and reapplying that burn and constantly be having something to do. So if a burn mage starts burning abilities onto the bruise running at them, yeah, they're using abilities and mana, but it means that with enough CDR, they're reducing their cooldowns enough so that they always have something to do. So that's why CDR on Cryptbloom is so good, because at cheaper cost, the CDR is basically why damage over time mages love this item compared to Void Staff. They don't need the premium 40% magic penetration. They're okay with the 30% magic penetration because the 15 CDR allows them to keep on pinging their abilities. And along with that, the unique Life from Death passive, which basically after you score a takedown, you heal allies for 50% of your AP. The unique passive means that that's all going to be helping your team. A key facet of League of Legends is that it's a team game. You can play by yourself in solo queue, but at the end of the day, it's a team game. Void Staff, if we look at it, is AP and 40% magic pen. That benefits you only. It's a very selfish item, for lack of a better phrase. Cryptbloom is more of a team item, right? That heal helps your team, which is another reason why it's, in my opinion, much better than Void Staff. You're helping your team survive a bit. You're helping that Aatrox get in one more auto attack to heal off. You're helping that Jinx get a couple more auto attacks to kill the Zed that jumped on them. You are helping your team out. And this synergizes really well, again, with damage over time and burn mages. This is what they want to be doing. They want to be constantly applying their burn effects, and when they get a takedown, they want some benefit from it. Burst mages, on the other hand, also benefit from Cryptbloom more than Void Staff does. Again, Void Staff is a very expensive item and is very selfish. With Cryptbloom, it means that burst mages can get a cheaper penetration item. They get a little bit of CDR so they can rotate through the combo just a tad bit faster. 70 AP is still nothing to scoff at, so it's decent. And the unique Life from Death passive means that burst mages, which generally build a bit more AP than burn mages, can use this 50% AP ratio a bit better. If once you build this item, let's say you're in the range of 400 to 600 AP, that means this ratio is going to be between 200 and 300 of a heal. For burst mages, that's going to be a bit on the higher end. So that's another reason why Cryptbloom is better than Void Staff on burst mages. And so now we can talk about the bigger problem with Void Staff. That's a problem with super pen items, as I like to call them. We can make a similar argument for this back when Lord Dominic's Regards was at 40% armor pen a couple patches ago in Season 14, but we'll get to that. So, if you have Void Staff, you're either snowballing or you're against a team that's stacking a lot of MR. If you're snowballing, it means you have the gold to climb the Rabadon's Deathcap Mountain and be able to afford your Void Staff. If you are against a team that's stacking MR, you may be teching in a Void Staff second or third item, delaying your Deathcap late or going Deathcap second. But essentially, if you're stacking MR, you're going to be going for Void Staff. Burst mages, like I said, have another issue where they have diminishing returns on damage. In the late game, and a little bit of the mid game, you are going to be very effective at killing enemies. And so positioning matters more. For example, if you have a Zoe, let's say your full combo does, let's say you're going against a Zoe versus an ADC. The ADC has 100 health. So let's say your full combo does 100 damage. So you kill the ADC. Well, if you deal 150 damage, you're still going to kill the ADC. That 50 damage is not helping you kill the squishy, which is what burst mages want to do, and it may help you damage the bruiser, or damage the tanks, or damage the juggernauts a bit more, but that's not only not your job as a burst mage, that's not what you were designed to do, or what you should be doing. If you're a burst mage, you should be waiting, hanging on the fringes of team fights, looking to take out the ADC, looking to take out the enemy mage. So burst mages have diminishing returns on, heavy AP and heavy percent pen items. Positioning matters more at this point. So that's one reason why burst mages are good want Cryptbloom, because the 10% magic penetration, if you're buying it 4th, is essentially negligible because you are building a lot of AP and you're going to be overkilling squishies, let's say 2 times instead of 3 times. But the Life from Death passive makes up from it because you can help your team out, you can get a bit of a heal. The CDR lets you rotate through your combo a little bit faster. Maybe you get a second combo off to help clean up the team fight instead of one combo at the very beginning of a team fight. And again, 70 AP is not bad. Dot mages, or burn mages, or any sort of DPS mage like Victor or Cassiopeia, they want the CDR so they can rotate through their combo a lot. They want the heal so they can stay alive, they can help their team constantly. They want to be reapplying those burns instead of wombo comboing constantly. And because of that, and because they're playing burn effects specifically, 30% magic pen is still good. 40% is really good, but it's not needed. Again, that 10% magic penetration difference is negligible for dot mages. So let's talk about how we would fix Void Staff, because Void Staff's been in the game for a very long time. Cryptbloom is a new item. Void Staff is iconic, for lack of a good phrase, so here's how I'm going to fix Void Staff. I think that we need to let go of Void Staff being the magic pen item. We should make Cryptbloom the default magic pen item, for lack of a better phrase. So there's 3 ways we can do this. We can fix Void Staff. One is we can just jack up the AP. If we look at the changelog down here, in 14.1, it went from 65 AP to 80, which was actually less than current Cryptbloom AP. In 14.12, it was 80 to 90, and in 14.15, from 90 to 95. One way is just increasing the amount of AP on the item. I don't think that's the solution, because what's going to happen is you're going to have to increase the AP to easily over 100, maybe 110, 120, before people realize this is a really good item, and it's going to be too strong back then, and they're going to have to nerf it back down. That's just going to happen, I think. I don't think increasing the AP is the solution. The next thing is we can turbocharge the percent penetration. In the past, since 12.10, it's been 40%. Before that, it was 45%. I think this could be a solution if we increase it to 45% magic pen. Really make it the premier magic penetration item into like heavy AP comps, but I don't know how good that's going to be, because again, you're going to run into the issue of the difference between 45 and 30. That's kind of evening it out, but still, you have the heal, you have the CDR and Cryptbloom. So what I think they should do is, I think they should turn Void Staff into a magic penetration Black Cleaver. Give it a unique passive like Black Cleaver does, just like Cryptbloom has, and make it apply magic reduction, stacks of magic reduction, instead of magic penetration. One of the reasons Black Cleaver is such a good item is because armor reduction is different from armor pen. Armor pen is a selfish stat. You only benefit from armor pen. Armor reduction reduces the target's armor, so your ADC can help you. Making this the magic damage Black Cleaver would actually help alleviate the problem that heavy AP team comps face. stacking armor is a lot easier than, well, no, excuse me, stacking MR is a lot easier than stacking armor, but it is much easier to deal with stacking armor than it is stacking MR. So turning Void Staff into a Magic Pen Black Cleaver could allow for more heavy AP team comps and would alleviate the issue of them getting absolutely stonewalled by things like Koenig Recurrent, Force of Nature, Abyssal Mask, etc. And so I have this tier list right here of burst and sustained DPS mages. And I just want to go over and point out the difference between the two, right? So if we look at Annie, right, she's a burst mage. She's going to be overkilling squishies by quite a bit, right? Annie plays a little bit more front to back because of Tibbers, so she could build Void Staff, but again, that Cryptbloom is helpful because it means once she's dug through the front line, she can sustain team fights. Something like a Syndra who deals, or Zoe too, who deals true damage. They don't need more damage. They want that CDR, they want that utility from the passive. Vigar is one of the unique mages that want Void Staff because he just quite literally can automatically stack AP, so he just wants to nuke enemies. I don't know why Jace is here. Jace shouldn't be here. He builds AD. But, something like Lysandra, who wants to be, who's the burst mage, wants to be like up in your face. She wants Cryptbloom more than Void Staff because the CDR is good for her rotation and the heal is good. Same thing with Ahri. But if we look at something like Brand or Cassiopeia or Victor or Hui or Talia, these are all sustained damage mages. These are all mages that are going to be applying dot effects for Blackfire Torque. These are mages that are going to be building Leandries. These are mages that want Cryptbloom, not Void Staff. At the same time, we'll get to this in a little bit, but if we look at these mages, if you start putting multiple of these, let's say you have a Victor mid with a Karthus bot, with a Talia jungle, let's say, you're going to have the enemy team building a lot of MR, and you're not going to be able to cut through that really fast. So that's my views on Cryptbloom versus Void Staff. So now let's get to Lord Dominic's Regards and Mortal Reminder. So let's go over the build path. So Lord Dominic's Regards, it's 3,000 gold, 45 AD, 35% armor pen, 25% crit strike chance, builds from a Last Whisper and a Noon Quiver. Mortal Reminder, it builds out of an Executioner's Calling, a Last Whisper, Crit Cloak. It has 35 AD, 35% armor pen, 25% crit chance. So let's go over the purpose of both. So Lord Dominic's Regards, or LDR, is the ultimate anti-tank item, essentially. You are getting, back when it was 40% armor pen, it was the default purchase. Back when I had the Giant Slayer passive last season, it was the default purchase. The Mortal Reminder was bad. But even now, it is the ultimate anti-tank item. It has a lot of AD, a lot of armor penetration percentage, and the crit strike chance is going to be just amping up your auto attacks quite a bit. Mortal Reminder, on the other hand, is your anti-heal item. You're getting a decent amount of AD, a huge amount of armor penetration percent, and crit strike chance, along with applying Grievous Wounds. So, Mortal Reminder is for stopping healers. If you have a Warwick on your team, if you have a Soraka on the enemy team, it's basically a guaranteed purchase. If you have an Aatrox and a Red Cane on the enemy team, it's a mandatory purchase. Unlike Void Staff and Cryptbloom, LDR and Mortal Reminder, I believe, is more of a choice than people give credit for. After the recent LDR nerf, which brought it back down to 45 AD and 35% armor pen, people have been saying that Mortal Reminder is just the default purchase because the Grievous Wounds is always better than the 10 AD. That's not entirely true. There's, a big difference between what that is. So the difference between the two, like I said, is 10 AD versus Grievous Wounds. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it is. And that's because we're going to get into the two types of marksmen. They're essentially what I like to call two different groups of marksmen. You have your AD stackers and you have your traditional marksmen. Your AD stackers want to be building raw AD and crit chance, and not so much attack speed. This is because most of those marksmen love to build lifesteal, and lifesteal scales off damage dealt, which means that AD and crit chance is really good. Your more traditional marksmen are going for crit chance and attack speed. They want to be they'll still build AD, but they still want that balance of attack speed and crit chance. They can be, just drilling through the enemy front line. They still build lifesteal, but it's not as big of a focus as AD stackers are. And the other reason that AD stackers are this way is because their abilities have good enough ratios that they can afford to build less attack speed and rely on their abilities a bit more. If we go back here, these last two columns show the difference, right? So, your AD stackers are things like Akshan. He wants to be just building AD, he wants to be building crit chance, and he wants to be building lifesteal. Aphelios gets attack speed from his passive, so he doesn't necessarily need to build it, but he wants to be building AD so he can just use things like his white gun to just shred through the front line, or his red gun to just heal up. Caitlyn and Ezreal, they have good ratios on their abilities. They want to be, they have that wombo combo that they really rely on in order to deal damage, and that relies on AD and crit chance. Lucian, MF, and Samira, these are champions that, again, have really hard-hitting abilities. They want AD to fuel those abilities, and they also build lifesteal and want to be healing a lot and sustaining through teamfights, as opposed to the more quote-unquote traditional marksmen, which build attack speed and crit. So something like an Ashe, she wants to be building attack speed and crit so she can be hitting you constantly with that slow. Something like a Jinx, he's like the picture of a marksman. Attack speed and crit chance, always has been. Something like Kindred also wants to be building attack speed, crit chance. Something like Yasuo and Yone as well. They want to be building attack speed and crit chance, especially because their Qs and the rest of their kit synergize really well with that. Yeah, they want to build AD, but attack speed and crit chance is what their kits are designed around. So it really is not a matter of what item is best in the game. It's a matter of what champions want what. So LDR, which has 10 more AD, is going to be wanted more by those AD stackers. Something like a Caitlyn is going to take that 10 AD and use it to hit the front line even harder than she already is. Whereas something like a Kindred might take Mortal Reminder more because it doesn't need that 10 AD necessarily. It benefits more from applying Grievous Wounds. The other thing is, it really does depend on game state. If you have a lot of healers, like a Warwick or a Soraka, or an Aatrox or a Redcane, you're going to take Mortal Reminder even if you're an AD stacker. If you're into an armor stacking team, let's say you have a Malphite and a Scion and a bunch of other tanks in the off rolls, even if you're one of these mages, one of these ADCs, you're going to build an LDR. So it really comes down to game state matters a lot, and what champion you are specifically matters a lot. It's not so much a matter of, oh, LDR is better or Grievous Wounds is better. It's a matter of, what does your champion want? What does the game state want? Which one can benefit more? And so that's essentially the difference between LDR and Um, Mortal Reminder. So now let's go into an actual functional example of everything I've said. So here I've made two theoretical solo queue teams. Blue side is obviously a bit more of a quote-unquote solo queue team. You have Kate Lux, that's a good synergy. Syndra just in the mid lane, kind of synergizes with everything else. And Aatrox and Red Cane. Two heavy drain tanks. There's a lot of AP, there's a lot of AD, good front line, but nothing synergizes too well. Red side is more of a traditional synergistic comp. You have an Ornn, you have Sejuani, you have Maokai for a really heavy front line, you have a Victor, which is a really good scaling mage, you have a Jinx, which is like one of the best hyper scaling ADCs out there. This is a really good front to back comp. So let's cover the mages first, right? So looking at this enemy team from Syndra's perspective, you have Victor and Jinx as your squishies, and you have Maokai, Sejuani, and Ornn as your, bruisers, juggernauts, tanks, etc. What this means is, yes, you can get a Void Staff to deal with Ornn, Sejuani, and Maokai. But again, you'll be overkilling Victor and Jinx no matter what, especially once you start scaling up and start dealing true damage and all of that. And once you have blown your combo, you're going to have 7 to 10 seconds of where you can't do much except auto attack. And in those 7 to 10 seconds, Ornn may be coming at you with his ult. Sejuani may be stunning you with her ult. Maokai may be sending his ult and engaging on you. Jinx and Victor are going to be ripping through your front line, no matter what. And even if you burn your combo, you have to be aiming for Victor and Jinx, which are in the back line. It's going to be hard to hit. Most likely you're going to hit one of these two, maybe Maokai. Whereas if you go Cryptbloom, then you have a little less penetration percent, but you have CDR, so maybe you can get a second rotation in and kill Victor or Jinx once the tanks have been dealt with. And passive means that, let's say you throw your combo into Sejuani, or let's say you throw your combo into Maokai, who's engaging on you, right? And then let's say Caitlyn helps finish off Maokai. Well, now that heal is going to be helping you and your team out and sustain through that and help finish off this side. And if we look at this from Victor's perspective, well, you have Aatrox and you have Red Cane here, which means that, yes, you can buy Void Staff, but you're a dot mage. You want to be applying those burn effects just over and over and over again so that you can cut through their healing. You're not a burst mage, you are a dot mage. So you would go Cryptbloom for, again, the healing passive, but more importantly the CDR, so you can constantly be applying your abilities to Aatrox and Red Cane. Now, if we look at this from the view of the ADCs, let's look at from the view of Caitlyn, right? So Ornn, he loves to stack armor. He would probably stack armor in this case with maybe some magic resist thrown in, but he gets bonus armor from his passive. Maokai and Sejuani, they build health and they build resistances, so they're going to be tanky. In this case, Caitlyn would want to build a Lord Dominik's Regards. Why? Because 1, there's not that much healing on this team. 2, you get that 10 extra AD, which Caitlyn synergizes really well with, but it's also going to help drill through this front line. So that's why Caitlyn would build LDR in this case. The biggest thing is there's very little healing except on Jinx that you can prevent. And then if you're going to be 1v1ing Jinx, you're going to win unless Jinx has her passive fueled up, in which case you're going to lose. Now, if we look at this from the perspective of Jinx, well, let's look at our front line. It's Aatrox and it's Red Cane. These guys heal a lot. They're bulky, but they heal a lot. So you would build Mortal Reminder. The Grievous Wounds is going to negate more healing than compared to the damage you would do with 10 extra AD. Especially because the Grievous Wounds would mean less healing, which makes it easier for your Victor to cut through your enemies. it becomes easier for your tanks to survive, for example. So this is like an example of how Cryptbloom is better than Void Staff. This is an example of how really it depends on game state of LDR versus Mortal Reminder. And let's take a look at the proposed idea of making Void Staff a Magic Pen Black Cleaver. Well, let's say your Lux and your Syndra are going to be applying Area of Effect and Magic Penetration items, right? Well, that means that you can have your Lux weaving in abilities on Maokai and Sejuani and Ornn, reducing the IMR of these things, and then you can have Syndra come in with her combo and actually be able to have a chance at killing these tanks because they have reduced magic resistance, because it would be magic resistance reduction, not magic penetration. So again, this is just an example of the nuance between Cryptbloom and Void Staff and LDR versus Mortal Reminder. So if you have any more video ideas, let me know. I love this sort of thing where you get to deep dive into the nuances of League. So again, if you have any video ideas, let me know, and let me know what you think.